Before you decide whether miracles are real, wait until the very last moment of this story, because what happened on that stage made an entire arena fall silent, and then explode into tears. If stories like this touch your heart, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel Red Heart, because sometimes one voice can change everything, just like this one did. No one noticed the small boy at first. He stood in a long audition line that wrapped around the building like a ribbon of hope and desperation. Adults towered over him, dressed in glitter, leather, feathers, and confidence. But he wore only a neatly pressed white shirt, black trousers slightly too short at the ankles, and shoes polished so hard they reflected the harsh morning sun. In his hands, he clutched a folded photograph, the edges worn soft from being opened too many times. His name was Mateo Cruz. He was 11 years old, from a small fishing village in the Philippines where storms arrived without warning and dreams were considered luxuries. People assumed he was there with parents. He wasn't. When a production assistant finally knelt beside him and asked gently, "Sweetie, where's your guardian?" Mateo lifted his chin, trying to look older than he was. "I came alone," he said. "But I'm not really alone." He held up the photograph. It showed a smiling older man with thick black hair, a guitar resting on his knee, wearing a white suit with flared legs. Beneath the photo, written in faded ink, were the words, "For my little star, Lolo." "My grandfather," Mateo explained. "He taught me to sing." What he didn't say was that his grandfather had died the year before, after a long illness they couldn't afford to treat. What he didn't say was that the guitar and the photo had been sold to pay hospital bills. What he didn't say was that he still woke up at night expecting to hear that voice humming in the next room. Back home, Lolo had been known as Elvis of the Coast. Not because he was famous, but because he sang those songs as if they belonged to him. At weddings, at funerals, during blackouts when the entire village gathered outside to escape the heat, his voice would rise above the darkness like a lantern. "Music," he used to tell Mateo, tapping his chest, "lives here. Not here." He would point to the radio. "And when you sing, you don't perform. You remember." Mateo remembered everything. When his name was called inside the enormous theater, his legs shook so badly he thought he might collapse before reaching the stage. The lights blinded him. The audience was a shadowed ocean of strangers. And at the judges' table sat three people whose opinions could change his life or end his dream in seconds. One judge leaned forward kindly. "Hi there. What's your name?" "Mateo," he whispered. "And where are your parents today, Mateo?" He hesitated. The silence stretched uncomfortably. "They're working," he said finally. "But my grandfather is here." He tapped the photo in his pocket. Another judge smiled. "And what are you going to sing for us?" Mateo swallowed. "An Elvis song." A few people in the audience chuckled softly. The boy looked so small, so fragile, and Elvis songs were known for their power, their swagger, their larger-than-life presence. The music started. For a split second, nothing happened. Then Mateo closed his eyes. And the first note came out low, warm, trembling but unmistakably rich. It wasn't an imitation. It wasn't karaoke. It sounded like memory. Like grief shaped into melody. Like a child reaching across time. The theater grew still. Conversations stopped. Phones slowly lowered as people realized something unusual was happening. His voice carried a texture that didn't belong to someone so young, a grain of sadness, a flicker of strength, a quiet defiance. Halfway through the first verse, his hands stopped shaking. By the chorus, he wasn't a nervous boy anymore. He stood tall, shoulders back, voice filling every corner of the room with a sound so full it seemed impossible it came from that small body. He didn't try to copy Elvis's movements, but occasionally his lip curled slightly, his head tilted, a natural echo of the man his grandfather had admired. In the audience, a woman wiped her eyes. Then another. Then many. The cameras cut to the judges. One leaned back, stunned. Another pressed a hand over her mouth. The third simply stared, blinking rapidly as if trying to process what she was hearing. Mateo wasn't performing for them. He was singing to someone who wasn't there. On the final note, his voice cracked, not from weakness, but from emotion bursting through the song's structure. The sound wavered, broke, then soared one last time before fading into silence. For one heartbeat. Nothing. Then the entire theater erupted. People stood, clapping, shouting, some crying openly. It wasn't polite applause, it was the kind that comes when strangers feel suddenly connected to something deeply human. Mateo blinked in confusion, as if waking from a dream. He looked around, overwhelmed, unsure whether he had done well or terribly. The first judge spoke, voice shaking. Mateo, that didn't feel like a performance. It felt like a goodbye. Mateo nodded slowly. My grandfather used to sing that to my grandmother, he said. After she died, he sang it to the ocean. He said she could hear him from heaven. The room went silent again. Another judge leaned forward. Is that why you're here? For him? Mateo pulled out the photograph, hands trembling now for a different reason. He wanted to audition once, he said. But he was scared. So, I said I would do it for both of us. The audience collectively inhaled. The third judge wiped her eyes openly. Mateo, I don't think Elvis is alive, but I think your grandfather is living through you. Mateo's lips quivered. He tried to smile but couldn't quite hold it. Then something unexpected happened. From the back of the theater, a deep male voice shouted, "Sing it again, kid." Laughter rippled through the crowd, warm and encouraging. Others joined in encore. One more. Please. Mateo looked at the judges uncertainly. The first judge grinned. What do you think? One more? He nodded shyly. This time, there was no backing track. No music. Just silence and a single spotlight. Mateo began singing again and softer, almost like a lullaby. Without instruments, the raw emotion in his voice was even clearer. It cracked in places. It trembled. It felt real in a way perfection never could. By the final line, tears streamed down his face, but he didn't stop. When the last note faded, there wasn't an explosion of applause. There was something more powerful. The entire audience rose slowly to their feet, as if guided by one shared heartbeat. People clapped gently, reverently, some placing hands over their hearts. Mateo looked up toward the ceiling, whispering something no microphone could fully catch. Later, audio technicians would confirm what he said. We did it, Lolo. The judge in the center reached toward a golden button on the table, the one reserved for moments that transcended competition. Mateo, she said softly, you didn't just audition today. You gave us a memory we'll carry forever. She pressed it. Golden confetti rained down like sunlight made solid. Mateo gasped, eyes wide, hands reaching out to catch the falling pieces as if afraid they might disappear. For a moment, he looked like exactly what he was, a child overwhelmed by something magical. But then he clutched the photograph to his chest. Not celebrating. Sharing it. Back in his village thousands of miles away, neighbors crowded around a single television in a small shop, cheering so loudly that passing motorcycles slowed to see what was happening. Mateo's parents, still in work clothes, held each other and cried. And in a quiet corner of their home, an empty chair seemed suddenly less empty. That night, the clip spread across the internet faster than anyone could track. Millions watched. Millions commented. Not about technique, or competition, or fame, but about grandparents, loss, love, and the strange way music keeps people alive in memory. People wrote things like, I lost my dad last year. This healed something in me. I wish I could sing one more song with my grandmother. This isn't talent. This is love. And maybe that's why it went viral. Not because a boy sounded like Elvis. But because he sounded like all of us when we miss someone. Months later, during the finals, Mateo was asked what he wanted to do if he won. He didn't say fame. He didn't say money. He said, I want to buy a guitar. Just like my grandfather's. And I want to sing in my village, so nobody feels alone. Because sometimes the greatest dreams aren't about escaping where you came from. They're about bringing light back with you. So if this story touched you, if it reminded you of someone you love, someone you miss, or someone who believed in you when no one else did, take a second to like this video and subscribe. Red Heart, not for algorithms, but for stories that keep hearts connected across distance and time. And remember this. People don't truly disappear. They live in the songs we sing, the courage we borrow from them, and the moments we choose to keep going even when it hurts. On that stage, one small boy proved something extraordinary.